again. Don't want to miss anything that we talk about, and there might be something important. You never know, bro. You know what I was just thinking about, bro? Technology, right? I was watching these videos on the data centers and everything, and I was stupid, bro. I was going to invest 10 grand into these companies. I knew it back then. This is 10 years ago, even when it was first all emerging. But the thing is, right? People are putting all their um, investment right now into um, the data centers, right? The AI data centers, because all these subsidiary computing um, fucking developments that we've had, like even this PS5 now, this is completely fucking obsolete by, I'd probably say, fucking, you know what I mean? What we have now to what this is just, it's not there, bro. It's just, it can't be all rolled out because it isn't. The reason why we're not getting, look, no, this is just what's on the commercial market right now. Yeah, well, the thing about even with that the military stuff is, right, what they're cracked into now with what they're doing with this computer processing and so forth is they used to build all these data centers and have all these money in these data centers, right? Well, companies like Meta and all these companies had all these data centers that they were building, bro. They had like $70 million into all these data centers, bro. And overnight, of that new fucking breakthrough in the technology or whatever, them data centers are. There's no point building them fucking $80 million fucking centers. They're obsolete. You get what I'm saying? They're putting in all of that fucking money to try and get what they was up to date at that time. Thinking that that's going to help continue, what we're using with our media. They're trying to fucking integrate it into the next system right now, but they can't do it because all our technology is just, you get what I mean? This is the thing about it, right? Is it all comes back down to the mining because without the mining, you don't have all the precious metals and things to fucking make the hyperconductor processor microchips in the first place. But the way that they've revolutionized the chips now and the systems, the AI system, it's not the computing anymore. We don't need these long fucking big cables that fucking you sit next to the data center and you fucking get all the shit straight away. It's like once we get rolled out with these new types of chips and they're fucking in everything, there is no global transparency. Everything is fucking it's mapped meta metadatalily and it's mapped fucking through all our devices, through everything. The mapping and the technology is all there, bro. The tracery aspect of, or even the surveillance aspect of it, is what I'm getting at. It really comes down to the way that the surveillance technology has progressed, as well as the computing power that can process. And because all systems in the world operate now by technology, you see, all them companies, every company in the world is now going to have to fall under lease to the company that owns. You get what I'm saying? So all the powers that existed in the world, all the fundamental wealth that has existed is all now obsolete to who has the most powerful computer. And that's the problem is a powerful computer is is more valuable than anything else on the planet. There's nothing, you know what I mean, because of what it is. It's too powerful. It is complete power. It's power to control the grid. It's power to control the utilities. It's power to control the computing. And these data centers right now are in very minimal fucking shape, but the powers that be that actually have is actually China. The ones that are fucking gonna actually fucking soon. We're gonna be. It's just gonna be like our government. It's gonna come up. It's gonna be like, oh, sorry, that's not the government anymore. This is your it's all on. We're getting captive, and we have to pay the lease. They have the control over the lease, which then again is control over all our taxes, over all our tariffs, all our everything. So whatever systems they implement, whether it's tariffs, whether it's fucking taxes, or whether it's rent, the rents is the big one. See, because they base their whole economic structure off the security that they have in the guarantee that they can receive back in the rent. You see what I'm saying? And that's what they and then they risk all their investments off that security of the fact that they're going to be receiving rental incomes. No, it's the rent that the properties. But you see, even just holding that land then is preventing other people getting it. So that then is renting it from others. Now, in the book of the prophet Isaiah, he says, "And the train of the temple was filled with the smoke of his glory, and the train of his robe filled the temple, and the hem of his garment became rent." Alright? So I want you to understand this prospect of the lease of authority. It comes from the garments of the possessor, the owner. You know what I'm saying? So ultimately, the ultimate possessor. No, no, no. The garment represents. Mm, mm. No, but the fact about where the garment becomes rent, that's another chapter I just threw in there. You know that fact where you get real sweaty and it perpetrates out of your skin and your pores, you perspirate. You know when you're reef within yourself, reef. You know the saying reef. You know, like you're fed up. It's a fed up tendency. You know, have you ever heard that? Like they were rent with them, as in it's another word of saying they were wrath with them, or you know they were in the same. Yeah, yeah. So becoming yeah, exactly. It's like the tides of the occupancy is coming to an end. You get what I'm saying? It's now time for eviction, but those that were left in charge don't aren't ready to be evicted. If that makes sense, you see. So God leaves the world to man's hands and man's devices, and He says, you know, be fruitful, multiply, subdue, and replenish. But then you find that man's hand stretches forward to the things that weren't within his provision. You know, it wasn't necessarily given him to subdue. It might have been something that was meant to replenish, but we didn't let it replenish. Instead, we continued to subdue. You know, and therefore, you know, um, watching, you know, the master of the house um, becomes angry with the tenants who are watching over, you know, what he's left into their hands of provision, and he's taken note to the things where their hands reached into forbidden places. Yeah, out of their reach. You know what I'm saying? Yeah, that's right. And it's not easy to perceive for the natural person, human. You know? Yeah. Mm, mm, mm. That's right. Yeah, that's right. Power, responsibility. Without the proper responsibility to the rule, there isn't righteous rule. You know what I'm saying? Like, we all know that, and so you know. Anyway, these are the three signs of late, right? Is first off is the moon. Did you know next week we're going to have a solar eclipse? Next week's the solar and lunar eclipse. Yeah, bro. 25th, apparently. It's the lunar and solar. And this is where that's where the seventh spirit comes into it, and that's where a person has to train in the seventh spirit to have perspective into the eyes of God. And as I was saying, right, the seventh spirit, of course, is what falls upon Jesus as when he becomes baptized, and the dove, so as a dove falls upon him, and then a voice from heaven speaks. And in that initiation, you get what I'm saying? It's the fact that it's announced from heaven. It's not the fact that it's just a mere pledge of man. You know what I'm saying? When the initiation takes place, it becomes announced in heaven. You know what I mean? And it's prevailing power and purpose. Like it can't be destroyed as much as the world as the tenant refusing to accept that it's now time to be evicted, as it were, of their positions. That's why the nations says angry and rage when the world isn't ready for God's eviction. It turns into this destitute place that we perceive it to be even today. You know what I'm saying? Where men are taken upon themselves to have power that they shouldn't have, they shouldn't possess. Well, there's a difference when it comes to technology and AI technology, for example, is because it's so advanced, and you know, um, we need it. It's definitely well, we need it, but we don't. You get what I'm saying? Yeah, when we, yeah, we're not going to get rid of it, are we? Like, that's what I'm saying. So, in many essences, do you see how it can become a item of worship? You know, well, we can't deny that it's strong and it has power, but at the same time, we can see that maybe that power can be used for all the wrong reasons. In that now we have to pay lease to use it. You get what I'm saying? Like, it's very interesting how that all works because it's whoever controls the technology controls pretty much the entire lease. You know, that's where the gold standard was born. It was the fact that there was nowhere to keep the gold safe, so they took it to the jeweler because he already knew how to keep things safe from people stealing it. You get what I'm saying? It was just they already knew how they had to lock it up, have passwords, codes, and things in order that people just couldn't come along and steal it. So that's how we invented banking later on. Just got handed over to people that already knew how to keep things safe. And, that's what technology ultimately is, keeping us safe. That's right. That's right. That's what it becomes later on. That's right. Yeah. Yeah. And the thing is, right, when you take a rock from the earth, you're stealing from God, bro. You get what I'm saying? You're not stealing from any other man when you're picking up a rock. Anyone can pick up a rock and say, "This is my rock." You know what I mean? But when can someone come and say, "No, you don't own that rock. That's the government's rock because this is the government's land." So, you don't own it, the government does, even though you claim ownership, and yet no one else really needs it. But just the fact that someone didn't want you to own anything, they can perpetrate that perspective over you, a covering over you that you don't actually have any custodian authority to claim a rock from the world, which would be to say you took that from God. You know what I'm saying? Like instead of you took it from the government. Like you see where there's a shift in people's ideologies. Like some people would rather enforce it upon you that you can't own that rock because it's the government's, or it's people with power actually own it. You have no power, therefore don't you can't be anything. You see that illusion that's in the world, like people under illusion they have no power when they actually have the entire world at their hands and disposal. You know what I'm saying? Like well, that's free. That that's what Jesus was teaching, was freehold over all of the possession. And that's what they were rebelling against, was no, the temple has ownership, and he's saying no, you know, God has ownership. We're only the ones that are filling the position. If we're filling that position in the wrong way, then we get ready for your eviction. You know what I'm saying? And that's why we also say his enemy is the collar, because they don't understand that it is they're biting excuses. You know what I mean? They're still biding their time, but their time, everything that they're doing with their power in their biding is just an excuse to what they could have done. You know what I mean? Which was, again, put Eden back into the ground. It hasn't been done. That's what the sad thing is. Yeah, there is agricultural productivity in the world, but it's under such strict guidelines and control. It can never be ever truly sown back to the ground. You see, people have always meant to have the right to replenish the earth, which has been taken away, and that's the one thing that God is most angry with. You see, is that we were meant to have the right to be able to do certain things, but because we bought for the Christian, or what we call the saint is biding their time, waiting for that to finally, it's like biding your peace. You keep your peace. I can go into a gay club and a gay bar, and I can communicate and I can talk with people, and whatever. And I'm straight. I'm not gay. You know what I mean? But I'm just biding my peace. You know what I mean? Like I can be amongst them sort of people and whatnot. But is it where I would reside? Maybe it's just something that maybe that's passing by. You know what I mean? So what then would be eternal abiding or residing, for that matter, when things reside permanently, or when something becomes absolute. So, but in saying all religion, well, let's just say then all truth. Is there an absolute truth or is there a non-absolute truth? And then what would define what resides in absolute truth? Well, isn't that what Christianity says that it um, defeats? You know what I'm saying? The saint, the saint is someone who has defeated all evil and just passes through until he again meets um, the master who was owner over all the land. Well, there's every you're a saint if you believe. Anyone's a saint if they believe, and that's where it comes in. That's the thing is where that's what's known as being under the fellowships, right? And that's a key because not all fellowships are in fellowship with one another, but still share in fellowship. That's a lesson in denominationals and denominations, um, congregations, and presbyteries. Now, presbytery is just body of people, the presbytery. It's the communion of the people, right? The fellowships of peoples. And in denominations, they're under different fellowships of communions. Right? But what is the ultimate partaking? You see, that's what they all. The whole thing of it is a symbology to a heavenly reflection. If that is in perspective, it's only the church was only an instrument to symbolize things that were orchestrated from the heavens. It's like a candlestick that you light within a house and it emanates light within the room of the house. That that the corners of the rooms of the that's right. The house again is a door, and that door is an invitation, and that's why God created the church as a house. See what I'm saying? It has to be the door of your own invitation to accept if you want to be a member of the number. If you don't want to be a member of the number, you don't have to enter the door. You don't have to accept the call. You don't have to enter in. But someone that accepts, that's right. That's right. That's right. Yeah, well, also when we talk about then equality, equality isn't the fact that you need to possess everything that everyone else does possess. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, that's right. Yeah, exactly. So the deeper perspective is that it was always yours. You get where I'm going? Yeah, that's right. But see, that's why that council is there. Can you see the false negatives in God's counsel? You get what I'm saying? God is always going to lead you on a path where things don't look like they appear, and that's what I said. Prophets dig through the wall. That was that whole thing about. Well, this is what I was getting at again. Is God cannot look. God's eyes are pure, cannot look upon evil. Yet the watchers and the spirit um, bear record, and bring again report unto God. You know what I'm saying? Well, the people are doing this now, and such and such said this, and such and such. You get what I'm saying? So you can imagine in the spiritual realm, the angels bring report to God. God doesn't look upon it himself in that, but he knows of it. You know what I'm saying? But this is the operation of God's spirit in this aspect. Like he cannot look upon it because it's not of himself. You know what I'm saying? Um, Even as the Father has life in and of himself, so the Son has life in and of himself, and that's what makes you sentient and you know um, the spiritual man. Spiritual man apart is the spirit apart. Your identity apart from God. You know what I mean? Contingents of possibility that is apart from God's spirit in the image of this life that you carve out for yourself. That's what defines the saint at the end of the day. Is it will be the life that they carved. You know what I'm saying? And they just bring it back to the tenant, and he says, "Oh, you did well. You either did well or you didn't do well." You know? Yeah. No, not everyone can sing. That's right. So you go on to Australians Got Talent, but isn't it the things? That's right. That's right. It's all well, the natural selection between humans, but that's also anthropic. Yeah, that's right. Who's hosting? That's right. Who's hosting the domain? The domain host. And that's the key. When now we know that the new domain that we're moving into, and you got to remember that we've come from this domain, we're moving to a new domain, black black and white TV, color TV, advanced audio, advanced. You get what I'm saying? It's moving from domain to domain to domain to domain to domain. You know what I'm saying? The domain is getting bigger. It's getting bigger, 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 bigger domain. More money, more domain. Well, it's what domain they want to rule. You see, it says the king. There's 10 kings that gather, but they don't have a kingdom. You know what I'm saying? That's the thing about the domain is the kings without kingdoms. The domain is the main rule. You know what I'm saying is the rule of the land, but people fall into the rule of other men's domains. Why? You become yielded to the one you have yielded to. You know what I'm saying? So when you say, "Oh well, I want um, the new iPhone," and you work, and then you give them the money for it, well, you yielded to them to get that effect. You know what I'm saying? So you know what I'm saying? So we've yielded to a point of technology that we can't come back from. Now, that is the new domain. Even though that the kings don't have kingdoms, they still rule. You get where I'm going there? You know what I'm saying? The kings don't even have to have the land. They don't have to have it. They have everything that that land can offer because they have the rule over the domain of that land. You see, that's the difference, and that's where it's coming. That's where it's coming to. It's like, yeah, there was freedom of domain for a long time after Christ. The freedom of domains changed and shifted all throughout Europe and all throughout the rest of the world until we get the state of the world that we have. The domain has continually shifted. Someone drew a map and someone put their name on it and declared its constitution. And declarations of constitutions then again signify um, paying back to the land, but that constitution is a new domain, bro, with this new technology. As how can you constitutionalize um, people's lease over your life? You can't be constituted because people have yielded to them submissively. You see, so you can't ever break that cycle, and that's what the world's fallen into recently. It's a new domain of things. The kings are the kings without being kings in efficacy. We have non-elected officials that are dictating our lives, as it was said, because we have to pay them lease for their technologies. And it can't ever be changed. People have just fallen into it. Um, and it only happened in. Nah, yeah, exactly. But that's the thing is, there's got that much power in obtaining and the workforce in producing their image. You know what I'm saying? So you can't fight against it because it's sound in itself. It's always got to you know keep going to the next power or be powerful again, and another power. The power level is just it's like system power now. Like you look at someone, oh, wonder what system power he's got. Oh, he doesn't have a good computer. Oh, fucking zero. You get what I'm saying? Oh, he's never gonna have any money. He's the first thing we think. Someone can't get a computer, they can't have money. So it's really a new domain, Merrick, bro. It's completely like as I said, it literally only just happened like within the last 3 years when all this shit was going down. Funny enough, all at the same time, you know. But yeah, it's just interesting. Right now, it would be key. If I was anybody, I'd be investing in lead. Lead. You know what is the fundamental of all them things? Lead is going to be the new thing, bro. Lead's coming back. Did you know that wickedness is a basket that is fed by lead? Have you ever heard that? Same. Wickedness is a basket fed by lead. Well, isn't it said the love of money is evil? The love of money is all evil, sorry. All evil. Okay. But notice how it has to do with the affection. You're thinking about the control, but the true revelation is the affection, bro. You know what I'm saying? It's all about the affection of the life that found value in the possession. You know what I'm saying? See how the tenants don't want to be evicted, yet they're still biding with their time in their affections, complicit in their affections. You know what I'm saying? The effects, contentions of effects over throughout their lives. I wanted to be rich. I wanted to be powerful. I wanted to have food on the table. I wanted to have a roof over my head. Well, do you see where that's again sort of reaching forward to something that should only be given to God to delegate the right to delegate allotment to men? Well, let me just put you back into a biblical timeline of perspective here. God give the people a particular allotment, right? And He says, "This is your allotment." And remember, I told you about how a man pulled out and he just spilled his sperm on the ground, and instead of taking up his responsibility and fulfilling his role and what he had to do for, you know, what the people seen right, what he had to do, but instead he would just spill his seed on the ground, receive all the pleasure without taking the responsibility. Well, that's what it really is coming down to is like receiving all the pleasure, but without the responsibility of understanding where you received your allotment of life. You know what I'm saying? Everyone receives a different allotment, given a different portion of faith. You know what I'm saying? It's how that faith grows, and you should be going from faith to faith, strength to strength, glory to glory, glory to glory. So how is that preventing you if the method is to go from faith to faith, strength to strength, glory? You get what I'm saying? It's still that it is a method to evolve. You get what I'm saying? But yeah, all I'm saying is you're looking at the effects of them commands, but you're not really looking at the tendencies that they're trying to bring to light. You know what I'm saying? And that's what the real. Well, then you didn't read the ordinance to say that, bro. You get what I'm saying? The ordinance says that God did allot it, and you're in rebellion of that by saying that He didn't. You get where I'm going? That's what is called the spirit of uncleanness, not understanding that God has already put in ordinance. Yeah, it is. You either believe God set ordinances or you don't believe God set ordinances. So you don't think there is any godly ordinance that I observe that is beneficial? No, but he allotted them passage into the land to thrive and prosper. That's what was given to them. That's what the promise. No, the people that had it, right? The people that had it, they abused it, and it was time to get evicted. And in order to do that, God used man to do it, right? So man went in and did the work for God to evict the people out of the land, as it were, because God didn't see them fit for that land anymore. As it were, they were doing things, they were reaching forward to things that were forbidden, not enabling, again, the things to replenish, as it were. So that's what God does. He uses people to enact his judgment in the world, if that's the case. You know? Well, look at Germany. They're going around killing everyone in Europe. You don't think that the rest of America finally joins the war? They don't think, no, they don't want to be part of the war. They didn't want to be a part, but they had to join. They joined eventually. Why? Because they knew that they had to be evicted, and when they got evicted, they would be the ones that took over. You know what I'm saying? Exactly. Exactly. When people prove that they need to be evicted, they get fucking moved out, bro. You know what I'm saying? What do you think the Nazis should have fucking been left there? Well, that's what I'm getting at. Well, that's what wisdom is to profit off them people that are doing that dumb shit. If you know it properly, you know what I mean. Well, that's why they had to get evicted. So when they, yeah, America claimed the ports, bro, and the manufacturing. That's where it all took off. They controlled the lease because then everyone had to buy their shit. You know what I'm saying? But that's the thing with America is when are they going to sort of hyperinflame to a point that the lease isn't right? You get what I mean? Like, and it's the same thing. It's the same thing with everything. It is. It says it purposes them to perform His will. So as it takes place, you got to watch it for its manifestation. As it says, those who have an ear to hear what the Spirit saith. You know, so when their things are taken root, you know what I'm saying. It's just a way. Yeah, but when you say the love of God is the number one commandment, right? We say this with great conviction. You know that must be the aptitude and amplitude of anyone that continues in the covenant. Our covenant, it's a non-breakable bond. You see, one must have the love of God in order to become the vassal um, of God's voice later on. You know, so if someone wants to be God's voice or his vassal for, they have to want want that. You know, he like when he selects his prophets, it's even the mother and the father. They see potential in the child to such a degree, you know, of properness in being. You know, it's something that comes out in some children born of excellence. You know, and when you see such a child that's proper and you know, an inciting of the parent was she took him to the priest and she gave him to God for hire. You get what I'm saying? The child is the woman's, as in the affectionates of her life and her will and her purpose and regard for her life is that she wants to raise a man, and she wants that man to be the essence of God to the world, the light of God to the world that a man is meant to be. You see what I'm saying? So the mum has love for the child, and she wants to nurture and tend to the child and